Hey guys, Mr. Burns here. I just wanted to take a little break from our regular grade 9 math stuff and chat with you for a moment about which math should you take. You have course selections coming up probably in about a month. I think they're talking about trying to get those out sometime in May, so probably about a month from now. And you should probably have an idea before you pick your math course which math you should take. So we're going to talk about the differences between essentials, applied, and pre-calculus math and what your options for next year are going to look like today. So, math pathways. First of all, kindergarten to grade 9, you just take math. We're up here at the top of the list here. So you've just been like, this year, your only option was grade 9 math. That's what you take. Next year, you're going to branch. It's going to split into essentials or intro to applied and pre-cal. And then in grade 11, it splits one more time into the final 3 branches of math that we have here in Manitoba: essentials math, applied math, and pre-calculus math. So what do those maths entail? What do they mean? What do they do? So for essentials math, this is the math that, well, it's essential. You're going to use it for everyday life. You're going to use it all the time. It is not the dumb math class. I've heard students say this before. Oh, you're taking the stupid kid math. You're just taking essentials. It's actually just really, really handy math. It's stuff that you're going to use in everyday life. Everyone should actually be taking essentials math. Whether you are like planning on going to university and studying math and you're like, I want to be a math person, that's all I want to do with my life, to someone who's like, I can't stand math, I don't want to be in math at all, I never want to see a number again. All those people could use the stuff you learn in essentials math. It is so handy. That's why they call it essential. It is essential math for life. If you've ever asked, when will I ever use this math? Essentials math is likely kind of on your radar. This is the very handy, daily, hands-on math that gets used often. Essentials math will not give you the requirements to continue to most post-secondary education. Now, post-secondary education would be stuff like universities, colleges, programs like that. A lot of them require something above essentials math. If you know that you're going to graduate and go right into a job somewhere, like you plan on just working, you've got a job lined up and you don't need to go to more training, you don't need to go to college, you don't need to go to university, you don't go to any other schooling, and your job's not going to require much math, then essentials is a good fit for you in terms of I don't need to take a higher level math. I don't need to take something that'll be maybe more challenging. I can just get what I need to survive. The essentials math is the really important stuff anyways, and I can get that and be good to go. So what do they look like in essentials math? In grade 10, so next year, you would look at consumer decisions. So this means making decisions about like, if something is on sale, what does that mean? If something is marked up or prices are marked down, what does that affect when you're going to buy something? Talk about earning an income. So how do you make money? What are different ways people are paid? Talk about like the difference between salaries and hourly wages and getting paid like per piece that you complete, or bonuses and overtime and stuff like that. We do a section on measurement. So that would be talking about how do you convert between metric and imperial? What are the different systems, measuring areas versus volumes? Talk about angles and lines, similarities of different shapes, so some geometry, and we also talk about trigonometry. 1 second. I have a baby crawling on my desk. You monkey. So trigonometry, which we just kind of wrapped up doing a little bit in grade 9 with each other, so that would make this actually maybe a little easier for you if you had my grade 9, because you've already seen trig. If you move on to grade 11, you look at interest and credit. So this is like when you put money in the bank, how much interest do you get, and how can you calculate that? If you get a credit card, what are they charging you? And what does it mean to have a credit card? Why would you maybe not want to carry a balance over on that credit card? How do you pay it off? What do they charge you? That kind of stuff. Talk about 3D shapes and 3D geometry. We do some statistics, which we've just kind of started in on right now, is the mean, median, mode stuff. You dig a little more into that. They talk about managing money. So this would be personal budgets. If you know how much money you're bringing in each week, how can you figure out how much to spend? How can you track your spending well? A little bit on relations and patterns. Trigonometry comes up again, and a bit of design modeling, where you actually learn to draw 3D figures and shapes and design things. In grade 12, you've got vehicle finance. Super important. How do you buy a car? The difference between buying a car and leasing a car. What kind of hoops you have to jump through to get that? What are all the terminology that you need to know to buy a car? A little more of advanced statistics stuff, so calculating chances of like winning stuff, or how much money would you get if you played this game over and over again and it offered this much of a prize. Some precision measurement, so this is down to like if you had to measure things really finely, how can you make sure you've got the right measurements in the right place? Do some career life work, so like going into the future, if you have a job, What will that job pay, or what kind of training do you need for that job? How will that affect your budget? What would your lifestyle look like? What kind of homes and stuff could you afford? There's a home finance section in terms of what kind of homes can you afford, talking about mortgages. How do you get a mortgage? What are the terms you need to know when you're getting a mortgage? Talking about stuff like the different insurances, the different parts of like what do you have to take care of when you own a house? What kind of costs do you have to watch out for? Geometry and trigonometry again comes back, right? More triangles. Some business finance, looking a bit of accounting stuff, and some basic probability. So that pretty much sums up essentials math for high school. If you get into applied math, now if you want to get into applied math, next year you have to take intro to pre-cal and applied. So next year it's all lumped under one section. And so next year's intro to applied or pre-cal would be one path into applied math. It covers a huge range of math topics. Like it goes from fairly hands-on stuff like you'd see in essentials to more abstract kind of graphing, math-heavy stuff like you'd see in pre-cal, like formula manipulation. Now, it's not necessarily easier than pre-cal. It's just got a different focus. Applied focuses on using graphing calculators and technology to do the math. So you might be looking at a really complex function, but you just plug it into your graphing calculator, look at the graph, and then kind of interpret what that means. Whereas pre-cal, they tend to use very few calculators. Applied math will get you into most post-secondary education institutions. If you want college or university, applied math gets you into most of them, as long as you're not going into a math field. That would be science, math, obviously, physics, engineering, medicine. Those are all math-heavy fields. So if you want to get into something like that, applied math won't quite cut it. But if you're going for most of the other trades, or if you're going into like English or law or something like that, applied math would be fine. So grade 10, they look at measurement again, trigonometry again. They look at factoring and products. They look at square roots and powers at a deeper level and what it looks like when you're graphing those things on a calculator. Relations and functions. So what are those like y equals 5x plus 10? What does that look like if you were to graph that kind of a function? And systems of linear equations is when you have two lines on the same graph and they kind of cross and you can see, okay, which one is greater than or less than, like if it has to be less than one of these lines and more than the other, what area of the graph would be the answer to that question? Grade 11, you do some reasoning, inductive and deductive reasoning, properties of angles and triangles, some more advanced triangle trig, more advanced statistics. Again, we're using a graph and calculator to look at big batches of numbers. Systems of linear inequalities, they kind of come back. Quadratic functions and proportional reasoning. And grade 12, they look at investing money. No, this is not like interest. Interest would be the essentials topic where you put money in a bank and how much are you going to get it back. Investing money would be more like if you're using a stock market, how could you like read a stock chart? How can you tell where your money will be at after a certain number of years? If you're having some costs and making some money, how does that affect the chart over a bunch of time? Same with borrowing money. You'd look at over time, what's that going to look like when you're graphing it? You do some set theory, counting methods. Counting methods sounds boring. It's actually really fascinating. Probability at a bigger level. You still do some advanced like pre-cal style topics like polynomial functions and exponentials and logarithmic functions, looking at what those look like on a graph. But again, it would be more technology heavy using the graphing calculator. Oh, baby got the mouse. Ugh. Let's go back there. And sinusoidal functions, which, you know, we were using sine. You can actually graph what sine does over time, and it gives you a fancy looking graph. So you'd be doing that with applied math in grade 12. Last one's pre-cal. Just the name suggests, this is a math to prepare you into calculus, which is just a stream of mathematics. So like trigonometry and geometry are branches of mathematics. Calculus is a branch of mathematics you usually don't look at until the university, but this is an introduction to how to work in that branch of math. It will require all the math skills you've learned in school. It requires a lot of homework and a strong work ethic to be successful. Not that it's crazy, like if you're working hard in class, it'll be fine, but just be aware that it will be more work than the other math courses in terms of how much is expected each day, and if you miss a day or two, you're going to be pretty far behind. It meets the requirements to any post-secondary education institution. If you want college, you want university, you want to get into whatever, you're in. If you want to do engineering, mathematics, sciences, medicine, dentistry, any of those kind of math or science heavy areas, you need pre-calculus. That's where you should be going. What do they look at? Most of this will be gibberish to you guys, and some of it's repeated from applied, but a lot of it is like you'll see functions, equations, quadratic equations, graphing systems of equations, rational expressions, absolute values, reciprocal functions. It's lots of graphing stuff and seeing how graphs react to different pressures and looking at different types of graphs and some really advanced trigonometry stuff by the time you get grade 12. So it's very abstract math. It's not hands-on. It's not like, hey, here's some money. What do you do if you put it in a bank? It's not going to be applied to your day-to-day life. It's going to be a little more abstract because that's the kind of math you need to be able to do to function in the sciences and maths and engineering. So a math teacher asked his current grade, it wasn't me, it was another teacher, asked his current grade 10 introduction to pre-cal and applied students to fill out a survey. And he asked them 3 questions. What advice would you give a grade 9 who's considering taking the intro to applied pre-cal? When comparing math in grade 9 to that course, what are some differences you've noticed? Should there be a minimum mark in grade 9 to register for the course? And what do you think that mark should be? So he didn't set one. He just asked his kids that are taking the course currently, do you need a minimum? What do you think it should be? So first answer, what advice would you give a grade 9 student? These are student responses. This course takes effort to get a good mark. You'll need to take it home and make sure you understand the concepts that day. Realize that if you want to pass, you'll need to do homework and dedicate time to that course. Do your homework every day. Pay attention during class. If you don't understand something, see the teacher right away for help. And I'd say if you want to go into it, you have to work. If you go really fast and you need to know your stuff. So just as a heads up, this is not like a slow-paced math course. If you're going into this, be prepared to do your homework every day. And there you can see a bunch of students kind of giving you that same advice. When comparing grade math in grade 9 to this course, what are the differences? In grade 9, we weren't as dedicated as we are now. Your mark will probably go down. It'll probably be less than what you're used to because it is a faster paced course. It's a little tougher to keep pace and you learn more stuff. Make sure you come out of class every day understanding what you learned. The next day we'll be moving on and building on it to making those concepts harder. Similar to how we did like the surface area stuff where it started with 2D figures, then moved into compound figures and moved into 3D shapes, how it all built on each other. The entire course is like that in pre-cal. So make sure you know what you're doing each day. Checkpoints may be soon after learning something new, so be prepared to show what you know at all times. You never know when there might be pop quizzes. It's going to move fast, but they want to make sure you know what's going on, so pop quizzes might be more common than you expect. And there's more expected of you, and the chapters go by quicker. It's grade 10 now. We expect you to do a little more than you did in grade 9 if you're into intro and applied and pre-cal. Grade 10 is decently harder, but you'll learn better things. So those are all student responses. Should there be a minimum mark in grade 9 to register for this course? And what do you think the mark should be? First off, math teacher, of course, he graphed it. So we had about a quarter of people think there's no minimum. Anyone should be able to take the course. Had a small little chunk say, well, as long as you pass math, I think you're good to go. Most people, fully like over a third here, are like, you need at least 70. If you're above 70, you should be okay in pre-cal. About a quarter said, no, you should probably be above 80. And only a sliver were like, no, if you're not above 90, you can't do it. So the takeaway from this graph here, oh my goodness. Guys, thank you, James. Hashtag quarantine, right? So almost over half of people figured above 70% is a good number, above 70 or 80. So if you're above 70, you can feel pretty confident you would be just fine in intro to applied and pre-cal. If you're under 60, be aware that most students who take it are thinking you might have some trouble here. So it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's going to be a lot of work and you might not have the foundation for it if you didn't learn the stuff in grade 9. Now, what their actual word answers to that question? No, whoever feels they can do it should try it. Well, it's good to be confident in your math skills if you're going to do it. No, if you want to take pre-cal, go for it, but think before you take it. It is a tougher course. And no, I don't think it needs to be a minimum. Anyone can do it. They just need to work harder and get help when they need it. So you can see there's a bit of a recurring pattern here. The kids who are in this recognize that it is more work than grade 9 was. And if you're willing to do that, you'll be just fine. So for next year, we're going to look at your choices. You got Essentials Math with, I don't know. Timetables aren't out yet, so I can't help you with that. Sorry. Or you can take Intro to Applied, Pre-Cal, and Applied with, I don't know again. Again, timetables aren't out yet, so we don't know who's teaching them. Currently, I believe it's Mrs. Jennifer who's teaching Essentials Math and Mrs. Gunter who's teaching Intro to Applied and Pre-Cal, but that doesn't mean it'll be the same next year. Those might change. So, Essentials Math, you'll talk again about earning and income, measurement, trigonometry, consumer decisions, which is like buying stuff, angles and lines and similarities. Or if you go to Intro to Applied Pre-Cal, IAP, You get measurement, trig again, factors and products, roots and powers, relations and functions, linear functions, systems of linear equations. Whew. So those are your two choices next year, one or the other. If you take Essentials Math, you're staying in Essentials Math for grade 11 and 12. If you take Intro to Applied Precal, you have your choice in grade 11 of Precal or Applied, or you could drop back into Essentials, also an option. If I could, no matter what you take, if you are Precal all the way through, you're like, I'm going into medicine and I'm going to take Precal the whole way, I'm going to ace all the math, I would still recommend when you get to grade 12, take Essentials Math as an option course. So do Precal because you need it to get into medicine, but also take Essentials Math because the stuff you learn about buying a vehicle and buying a house in grade 12 Essentials, it's crazy useful. I cannot tell you enough how important that is. So that's my recommendation as a math teacher. I taught Essentials Math for many years. I love the Essentials Math course. I think it's super important. But I mean, that's my bias. I really enjoy it, and I really wish I'd taken it before I went into like buying a house and buying a car and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the choice is yours. If you're really concerned about it or you're not sure, you can talk to me, or you can talk to Mrs. Weeb. She also is really good at giving advice on math courses. She's been giving people math course advice for many years. She knows which people tend to succeed and which people really struggle with it. And if you're really worried, you can always register for both, right? And that way, if the worst happens and you end up not passing Precal and Applied, you still have your grade 9 math credit in Essentials and you're good to go. You don't have to redo anything. You don't miss out on anything. You just might lose a spare later on to make up that credit. But you can make up that credit with an option course that you like. You wouldn't have to retake Precal and Applied. So that's it. That's what I got for you for today. So if you have any questions about math course selections, you can always send me an email or talk to Mrs. Weeb. But that pretty much sums up what you need to know for course selections in math, which will be coming up again probably around mid-May-ish. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.